Today, Trump called for the death of Democrats in Congress, but he didn't call for the death of you or me. So you could say almost literally today we've dodged a bullet.
Well, obscurity has its benefits, Nora. it's the
But I
so
want to say to all of our listeners, obscurity has its benefits, but that doesn't mean you should subscribe and spread the word.
well,
We'll
that's
take,
right. We're only obscure to those who resist informed perspectives, like our president.
yeah.
But I don't. I'm literally, as we're doing this podcast, I've just been writing a column on what you were talking about there, and I hope to finish it when we're done. But it'd probably be better because I'll get to talk to you about it. And Trump has done this before. He called for Mark Milley to be put to death when Milley was saying things that he was uncomfortable with. Um, but this deserves a little bit more explication. On the one hand, what were these people calling for? They were calling for they were all military veterans or CIA veterans, and they were calling for those in the military to, and here was their shocking transgression, to uh, uphold the Constitution. That was their
Well,
offense.
that's Trump's definition of treason.
Well, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But it's something about it resonated with me. And let me put it to you that for the past 2 days, Donald Trump has been welcoming here in Washington a man who we know put his political enemies to death. And today he said, hey, let's put my political enemies to death. What's more, Trump, as his political fortunes fade, and they are fading fast, he's become more and more odious. Last week we thought we would never hear anything quite as bad as when he said to a reporter, quiet, piggy. And then, on Tuesday, we never thought we'd hear anything as bad as him actually defending the murderers of Jamal Khashoggi and saying that Khashoggi was not well liked, like he brought it on himself. And then chillingly, like the fucking Godfather, he was like, things happen. You could hear Tony Soprano saying it. Well, I'm sorry, things happen, And so it seems like he's in the middle of a descent into a very dark place.
We've feared this, that the more his political fortunes decline, the more he will double down on odious behavior. And of course, it doesn't get much more odious than calling for the death of your political opponents. And we know that there are unhinged people out there, or even people who under other circumstances might be hinged, but hear from their cult leader that it's time to murder the traitors. But we also know that he says almost every day, there's the Insurrection Act. And I'm fearing, but expecting that if it really looks going into next year like Democrats are just going to sweep in these elections and his political fortunes and those of his party are deteriorating rapidly. And I suspect what may very well happen, this is something we can get into more, we've talked about it a little bit, but if he goes ahead with his plan in May to purge the Federal Reserve of its sane people and replace them with clowns and idiots, the global economy and the American economy are going to go into a tailspin. And can we possibly put it past him to invoke the Insurrection Act and declare martial law? No, it is well within his wheelhouse.
Well,
So,
he's already trying to have his opponents rounded up, right? He's using the law, but in a very sort of sloppy and ineffective way thus far to go after his opponents. And as you say, if it looks bad for him, he's likely to get worse. Well, there was a poll out just yesterday, I think, that seemed to indicate that the Democrats were up in a generic competition with Republicans, and I think this was Gallup. It was a fairly reputable poll by like 15 points, which I don't know. I don't recall ever having seen anything like that. I know that I spoke to a Democrat on the Hill last week, and he said if we're up 8 points, we'll win 35 seats. So I mean, this is big, right? I mean, it's potentially very big. And it's just one of the indicators. You mentioned the fate of the economy, the other things, which just suggest, desperation may be Trump's only option.
Well, there is another option, which is to understand that the people have turned against you and to react by trying either to improve your policies or change the way you refer to people. But that, of course, is not even an option for him. That we could consider this one poll possibly an outlier, but what we know is that the average of reputable polls has the Democrats in this generic ballot. Would you vote for a Democrat or a Republican? Up by somewhere between 8 and 10 at the moment, which would be huge. And it would also put the Senate in play. And I should mention one other possibility that I do not rule out, which is John Thune, if it looks like they could lose the Senate, basically blowing up the filibuster in order to pass a draconian voter law, which would ban most early voting, ban most vote by mail, and require a completely onerous voter ID. And Congress can do this nationwide for federal elections. The Constitution says it plainly that the states regulate, but Congress can supersede them and regulate the time, manner, and place of elections. So behavior that's completely outside the norms of our system, designed solely to keep in power a party that has lost its public support, is not just on Trump. It's also very much in the possible wheelhouse of those we once considered sane and reasonable, if conservative, like John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader from South Dakota.
Yeah, remember a couple of weeks ago? Remember when the Charlie Kirk story was the big story?
Yeah.
What was that, like 10 years ago? I don't know. It seems like a long time ago, right? But there was this thing the Republicans were saying, which is there is a atmosphere of political violence in the United States, and the Democrats are responsible for it. Well, the president just called for these people to be killed, and as you pointed out, what wacko out there is going to say, "Oh, he was speaking to me," through the TV set. I mean, it there is an atmosphere of violence out there. Most of the violence comes from the extreme right, as we know. And this is only going to turn up the heat. And he could do that too. He doesn't, it's not just the elections. The reason he's pardoned all these people, I mean, part of the attack on these members of Congress, which was outrageous on multiple levels, was that Trump said they were guilty of sedition, which, by the way, he is guilty of, right? He is the one who seditiously led an uprising against the United States government. That is actually sedition. But, if he doesn't think he can achieve his goal within the system, he has proven time and time again he's perfectly willing to try to achieve it outside of the system. And he's sort of built up this army of thugs that he thinks he can call upon.